Hi guys, Frances here from Athena HQ, and today I'm having a chat with Katie Fletcher, who wrote our most recent research paper around robotic process automation. So welcome Katie, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with me today. If you could start by, I suppose, giving us a little bit of insight about what is robotic process automation.
So robotic process automation is pretty much the next step in what we're doing to maximise efficiency within different industries. So it's currently used in banking and in finance industries in particular. And what it does is it takes a very manual, repetitive, high volume task and automates it using a robot. So one example of how RPA is used today might be if you were in a contact centre, you've got a contact centre agent who's required to enter information into their CRM system and then into your transaction system, and then maybe there's another system where they have to update their details. RPA can use a robot to take the data from one system and put it into the other systems automatically, thereby cutting the time that it takes to complete that task end to end.
Okay. And so how does that work? Like how does it actually all come to life? You know, we've all got this vision in our heads of, robots, of WALL-E and, R2-D2, right? When we talk about robots, but what does that actually look like in a real world environment?
Currently, real world is quite different to where it could be in 5, 10, 15 years' time. But there are already current day examples that use a robot in a workplace environment to complete tasks. And there's one example in particular which has a robot as your receptionist. So customers walk in and the first thing they see is this robot who will greet them, speak to them and be able to direct them to the right place.
Okay, so an actual physical robot.
That does exist.
How cool.
But where robotic process automation today is different from where it would be in 5 to 10 years, and even that robot will get more advanced as things goes on. The technology today means that RPA is largely working on the front end of your system, so it doesn't have that system integration on the back end. It's taking what you would see as a user from the front end and then using that data in another place. So that example of you entering information in your CRM and then into your transaction system, that's sort of like the sweet spot for RPA currently.
Okay.
The second phase of RPA is where we can then use natural language to process requests.
Okay.
So it's starting to use a little bit of artificial intelligence and a little bit of machine learning to take the way that we speak in everyday terms and aligning that to rules in an engine in the back end.
Okay.
So that's like the second phase of RPA.
Okay.
And then the third phase, which is where we're heading to, where we're not there yet, but that's where we can then take that natural language and make decisions after applying a rules engine. Okay. So in the most advanced sense, RPA will be able to make those decisions. It'll be able to understand your customers and then make decisions within a defined framework.
Okay, all right, fantastic. And what are some of the benefits of robotic process automation or RPA?
There's heaps, to put it simply. I guess some of the most obvious ones is that it increases your automation and therefore it increases your scalability. So in areas where you've got a high volume of very transactional, repetitive tasks, RPA allows you to do those tasks, do 10 times more of them for a fraction of the amount of time. Okay. So in organisations that are very transactional and high volume, you can take on a lot more work for a lot less cost. So that's the main one. So one of the other benefits with RPA, particularly when you compare it to like traditional business process optimization, is that you don't need to integrate it with your systems. Okay. So traditionally, to improve efficiency and to improve processes, we had to go right back to the very beginning, change our systems and change the way our systems work together. With RPA, you don't need to do that. It sits on the front end, it sits at the presentation layer of the systems, so it's really easy comparatively to implement. Okay. So low cost of implementation, which also means that you see your return on investment a lot sooner. And that return on investment is also a lot higher because you get the benefit of the efficiency and the increased scalability for much less cost than what you do when you're trying to change systems and integrate systems. And it also means that you then don't have to run in-depth training programs and change the underlying systems that your organisation is working on. Okay. So that's another one of your benefits.
Do you still need IT involved?
You do still need IT involved, but it's at a different level of involvement.
Okay.
So it's not a rework of everything that exists and all the foundations of your organisation.
Yep.
It's applying a new technology to improve what already exists and to take out some of that complexity.
Okay, so you don't need to go back to all your vendors and pay for customizations and do all of that stuff that's really tricky and annoying. You can just kind of apply a pretty surface on top of everything instead.
Exactly. Which also means that it can be implemented in a lot smaller time frame than traditional projects.
Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose one of the common concerns that you hear around robotic process automation, this whole concept that robots are going to take all of our jobs and we're therefore going to find ourselves unemployable and with all these skills that aren't being utilised, especially in our home country, which is what most of us are concerned about. How does that sort of apply in the RPA world?
So what's been found so far in organisations that are using RPA is that instead of replacing jobs and there being mass redundancies, those organisations are applying RPA in a way that enables them to free up their human resources so that they can take on more complicated tasks. So what you find in the organisations that do have that high volume of transactional work is that employee engagement levels can be quite low because the work that they're doing is boring, it's repetitive. You're doing the same thing every single day. You've got no ability to make a decision or, you're data entry. So by taking that work away from people and empowering them to take on more complex work that requires decision making, they're handling the exceptions that RPA can't deal with. They're increasing their employee engagement, increasing skill set, driving that growth in their employees, and they're seeing that they've got more people who are happier and able to stay on longer, and there's therefore the increased scope of work. So those organisations that are being really strategic about using RPA aren't downsizing their workforce, they're increasing their workload, and so they're bringing on additional tasks to do to use the human resources that are on hand.
Okay, all right, well that's a really fascinating discovery. And finally, I suppose taking the concept of RPA, and I'm sure there are we can all think of multiple like manual labour type industries and things like that are very high volume repetitive tasks. But if we start to sort of narrow that focus specifically in the contact centre and customer service industry, what are some of the ways that RPA can help those listeners of ours that are in that space?
So the contact centre industry is like the real sweet spot for RPA because of the volume of back office processing work that the industry does. So it's exactly what RPA was designed for. So there's two big impacts on the contact centre industry from RPA. The first is on the type of work that organisations within the industry do. So it means that the highly transactional tasks that they currently do can be switched and can be automated through RPA, which means that the agents then are freed up to take on different work. So an organisation in the industry may start to get a little bit more savvy and may start looking at, what additional outbound mail campaigns can they do and what other value can they offer to their customers to help improve their efficiencies. So the type of work is going to change. It's also going to change the volume of work that those organisations can do because now you can do a whole lot more for a whole lot less. If you look at contact centre organisations, you're often very impacted by seasonality. RPA allows you to adjust for seasonality really quickly, really easily without needing to train up staff and then let staff go and have people on short-term contracts. You can have your core workforce and support that with RPA to handle those seasonal fluctuations. So that impacts the type of work that the contact centre industries can do. But the other really big impact on the industry is where that work is done. So currently, a lot of organisations will outsource to or offshore their work. So using the Philippines and India to handle a lot of their, whether it's back office processing or whether it's the first customer interaction. But RPA currently costs, to put it into perspective, it costs 90% less to use RPA than it does a worker in Australia. It costs 34% less to use RPA than a worker in India, and it costs 50% less to use RPA than a worker in the Philippines.
That's pretty huge, isn't it? That's game changing.
It's huge. It's huge. And what it means is that where we're currently offshoring a lot of that work, If that gets replaced with RPA,
Mhm.
it means that you can then onshore the rest of the work. So your workforce in Australia may start to increase
Mhm.
so that the people here can handle the exceptions that the system can't.
Yep.
But all those decisions are things that the front-running organisations
Mhm.
in the contact centre industry will have to start to make.
Yeah, and it's just another, I suppose, application of that concept. You've also got organisations in Australia, such as government organisations, who aren't allowed to or choose not to offshore. So there's now this whole avenue open to them to start to get greater efficiencies and to minimise manual workload. And start to lift the efficiency of their business, which has never really been an avenue for them before. So that's a really fascinating insight. Look, thank you very much for joining us today, Katie. Really appreciate your time.
No problem.
And guys, if there are any topics that you'd like to hear from us on in the future, feel free to post the comments below, where we're going to keep releasing little sound bites like this, and we look forward to your feedback. Thanks and have a great day.